This is Brian Meador from East Carolina University. You are listening to the Sports Objective, the official, unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective, probably the earliest we've ever done a show. It's definitely not the latest we've done a show. Depends on where you are with us right now. My good buddy from China Grove, North Carolina, Bubba Rosenbaum. How are you?
Doing well, Dave. How are you?
Good. Very excited. I know we have a guest who is actually in Omaha, not from Omaha, but in Omaha, right, Bubba?
Yeah, as you see there on the right side of the screen, fired up to have this guy back on the program for the third time. We caught up with him several weeks ago during the regular season, but joined us boots on the ground there in Omaha, Ben Upton of the 11.7 pod. Ben, how's Middle America?
It's different, I'll tell you that. When I landed on, yesterday afternoon, or actually it was yesterday morning technically, and you just get off the airplane, walk around, and it's just so hot, man. Like the rumors are true. It was like 102 degrees, but overall atmosphere, the fans here are great. The people that live in Omaha are awesome. I've had nothing but like a great experience so far. It's really what everybody says. The College World Series is like a bucket list thing that I highly, highly recommend. And I haven't even been to a game yet.
Wow. Well, I can tell you that we're very excited to have you on because I was telling you pre-show in the green room, we were definitely going to be there in Omaha. I was thinking it was kind of funny when Bubba told me you were coming on yesterday. The very fact that I was like, I'm glad you're coming on because the very fact that we're going to be there. It's a matter of time for East Carolina. And why not have one of the best podcasts and a new friend to the show that you've been on a few times with us now, someone that's there. What kind of amenities, what kind of things are there to do for fans? So maybe Bubba Rosenbaum. I told him when we go that I'm going to do a road trip with him and his dad. His dad is awesome, and a lot of his dad's friends are awesome. So Pirate Nation, I tell you one thing, I love the Pirates so much that even if I didn't know people, I'd ride with them if they were Pirates going to Omaha. That's how bad. I know Bubba would do the same thing. You can put me in the trunk for how many hours? It's fine with me.
Well, hey, whenever the Pirates make it to Omaha, I'll ride in that same car with you. We'll have a good time. But as far as like amenities go, it's just so neat because everything's downtown. Like stadium's downtown, you got bars and restaurants and everything. But then there's just like so many tents set up, a bunch of vendors, like people that have their custom made College World Series shirts that are for sale, or just people that are in the baseball community trying to showcase like their talents and things. Like, for example, there was a really cool like used glove and bat store that they turned it into things like wallets and coasters and things like that, things you don't even think about. And they're all there showcasing their stuff. They're so friendly. And I loved walking around downtown today. I probably spent 7 or 8 hours just walking up and down, checking everything out. You guys are going to have a blast whenever you guys come.
No doubt about it. In fact, one of the Pirates' very own, Othello Meadows, a former basketball star of the Pirates, told us that he, what was it? I can't even remember the name of the bar, Bubba, but I remember he told us, but he said he's going to help us out where he's going to throw a huge party at a sports bar there when we do make it to Omaha. He's a huge, obviously, ECU guy, ECU baseball fan. And we'll definitely have you. When we do that show, we'll definitely have you on, my friend.
For sure. No. And I will say, I did see an ECU baseball shirt today walking downtown. It might have been a player, to be honest. It was about a mid-age, like 20 or early 20s, maybe late teens, walking around. Looked like a baseball player. I didn't stop and ask him, but he was wearing the ECU baseball shirt. So could potentially be someone scouting it out for future years. Trying to see what Omaha's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone else from Pirate Nation that's very well known. He coached in the high school ranks in Eastern North Carolina for years and years.
Oh, yeah.
He also coached on the college level, served on Keith LeClaire's staff as a volunteer assistant. George Whitfield, Coach Witt is very well known out there in Omaha. You can tell we're doing this at 12:45, but
Yep.
very, very well known out there in Omaha. They say they address him by name when he enters the stadium and to have his ticket scanned.
They know him.
No doubt. In fact, he's well connected in the baseball world. Speaking of well connected in the baseball world, before we talk that, I want to put you on the spot here. What are you hearing about? I know the Pirate Nation, if I don't ask this question, they'll be disappointed. The man on the street question over the last week or so is, will Cliff Godwin stay? What are you hearing? Are you hearing he's leaving, not leaving? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so I've been hearing a lot of things, and they've all been the same thing. Just intertwined college baseball community. Some very, very well-respected people in college baseball have been telling me the way that they think the dominoes are going to fall is that Mike Bianco from Ole Miss is going to take the LSU job just because he played there. His son's playing there right now, Drew Bianco, and Cliff Godwin is going to be going to be the next head coach at Ole Miss. So that's the way I think right now. They're in a bunch of obviously Cliff Godwin can't go anywhere until Drew Bianco goes anywhere. But I've also heard that LSU, if they don't get Bianco, they're going to go hard after Cliff Godwin. So Pirate Nation, it does not look good. I apologize, but I believe the man that built, or I guess didn't even build the dynasty over there. He came in 2015, is that right? But really has had a lot of success there. I believe he'll be leaving.
All right. Well, you heard it here first on the Sports Objective. Those people that wake up later on, and there are a lot of people that when especially weekend shows that we do, they're working in the yard. If you're cutting grass right now, then stop, turn off the mower, and go back and get you a Pirate beverage, even if it's 8:00 in the morning. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
The very fact, you know what? I'll say this. Whatever happens, happens. What I do know is everybody loves Cliff Godwin. If he goes, there'll be some fans, I think, Bubba, that'll be upset, but overall, they're not going to be so mad like that he would go to. I tell you what would not be good for Cliff Godwin. He would never do is he would never go to an NC State, a North Carolina, a Duke. He would never go to an in-state school or like a rival school. Now that would be, don't you think, Bubba, that would be the one way that people would be very angry at Cliff Godwin?
Yeah, I mean,
that's never going to happen. But
you're going to have that faction if one of these moves happen, whether he ends up at LSU or Ole Miss. There'll be that faction that that feels betrayed, especially since the Pirates haven't been to Omaha yet. But I think most people will, whether they necessarily agree with it or not, they'll understand, the ones that know a lot about college baseball, and LSU obviously speaks for itself in terms of everything that program has accomplished, especially in the Skip Bertman era, back throughout the 90s and early 2000s. And then obviously Ole Miss, and they've just been to Omaha, I guess, that one time back in 2014 when Cliff Godwin was part of that staff, his fourth and final season with Ole Miss.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was right before he came here, right, Bubba? That later on. But the problem, I think, is that for us is that we're going to have to, in East Carolina, there are a lot of fans that don't understand the way that college sports works. And what I mean by that is when a coach says that he wants facilities, the one thing I would say, people are going to have to, if you're in the administration, if you're in Pirate Nation, even though we're a quote football school, college baseball is huge for us. If you look at our fans, I mean, we had, what was that, Bubba, over 5,000 fans pretty much every game for the regional. So there's a lot of fan bases that wish they had those kind of numbers. But as far as the facilities go, he won't say indoor. He won't say former player locker room. So when the former players come and work out, they can have their own locker room. He wants I know the team we played, Vandy, has that. There's in other words, the elite programs have that. And the same thing, I know he wants a weight room for his players to have their own weight room to work out. And there's things like that would help the process. But I mean, if it's LSU or Ole Miss, those are the two jobs we know that he would leave the program for. So that's what another thing that hurts is that those two jobs are probably going to be open. It looks like. But Bubba, why would he stay? why do you think he would stay and not take those jobs? So I'll play devil's advocate here because I think that.
Why would we be able to retain Cliff Godwin? Because
Yep.
of his loyalty to East Carolina University, and you know his mission to get East Carolina and Omaha is not complete, and he is making. I mean, he's paid very, very well. Now, obviously, at Ole Miss, I think they're paying Bianco, at least 1.3 or 1.4, and the numbers that have been thrown out there as far as the new LSU coach have been anywhere from like 1.6 to 1.9. So, yes, he would be 3 or 4 times his salary currently, but making well over $500,000 when you factor in his performance-based incentives, like all the things on the field, as well as what this team and program has accomplished in the classroom. And that's not a bad gig to be making well over $500,000 doing what you love to do, where you love to do it at East Carolina. Now, obviously, with everything that LSU and Ole Miss, for that matter, can give you in terms of facilities, when you have tens and tens of millions of dollars coming in from the college football playoff and everything that those SEC programs have that we do not. That's the difference. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, if it comes down to finances, which it will not, because that's nice, but Cliff has said time and again when he turned down Alabama and then also Mississippi State, those jobs were obviously going to pay better than East Carolina.
And he just turned down another thing, Ben. He just turned down Texas A&M. They had a group of folks that came in to the Greenville Regional. I know Bubba is the one that told me. So I'll give you credit, Bubba. A couple weeks ago, you told me about that. So the very fact he turned, I mean, they came at him hard. I mean, Mississippi State folks came at him hard. Alabama folks came. There was a rumor a couple of years ago about Georgia Tech. I mean, there's all these different fan bases. There's opening for programs that are coming in. But I was telling the guys earlier today, the very fact that we have a coach that, it's great to have a coach that everybody wants. I mean, we've had coaches like Scotty Montgomery in football that nobody wanted. Because the program was so bad. So it's good to have a coach like Cliff Godwin. He's a local guy, former Pirate, certainly under Keith LeClair's time here with the Pirates, the catcher. He checks all the boxes. I hate to use that term, but he does. And so we'll see how that plays out. We're very sad because for our show, we have a guy that's been a big contributor for our extra innings, Corey Glore, who he actually got the job yesterday, being Friday, with the Tulane Green Wave. So he's going to be going there as it director of operations there is it radio operations? How does that work?
I believe he's called director of broadcasting, but obviously Corey had been strictly baseball with us, other than occasionally filling in for Jeff Charles on the basketball side of things. And then I think this year he had function in a behind the scenes role in football, doing some stuff in the press box. But this is a big step up in responsibility for Corey, and obviously that means a much bigger paycheck. So congratulations to him. But like I told him earlier today in a private text message, not only do we appreciate what he's done for us here at the Sports Objective, but everything he's done for East Carolina University, and he becomes synonymous with East Carolina baseball over the last 6 seasons. And hey, now we have an excellent contact down with Tulane.
Yeah, we know we can party when we go to Bubba or Mardi Gras. I mean, we go to Mardi Gras, Bubba and I go there. That will be probably the last 2 guys you'll see at Mardi Gras will be the 2 of us. But we definitely, when we're in New Orleans, we'll definitely take him out to dinner or whatever. But so not a great day for Pirate Nation as far as that goes, but especially those of us that are close to Corey. But we're very happy for him personally because it's well-deserved. He's worked very hard. Let's move on now. Let's talk about the College World Series. I wanted to get that out of the way because people are going, if they listen to our show, they're going, why isn't he asking a guy like Ben Upton about it? So we got that question out of the way, the toughest one. What are your thoughts on the series? I'll tell you what, Bubba and I have talked about it. We think Vandy's going to win the whole thing. What do you think?
Yeah, so if Vanderbilt stays out of the losers bracket, they have as good of a chance as anybody. I mean, they're the favorites going in. They got Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, the 1-2 punch that nobody ever wants to see. But I will say, if they do find themselves in the losers bracket, I don't think they have the depth to get through the losers bracket on the starting pitching side and bullpen. So it's a little bit different, like Vandy team that we've seen in the past. They actually have a lot of power and some guys that can hit 1 through 9. So I think they're going to be able to score some runs, but we've seen the back end of their bullpen just explode some points. And when they're facing good offenses like Arizona or NC State showed me a lot against Arkansas, even Stanford. If they find themselves in the losers bracket, it's going to be really, really tough for them to battle back. But I will say if they get into that championship series, best 2 out of 3, I mean, you got to love the odds there with Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker throwing 2 of those games.
Yeah, no doubt. And, we'll take a look at each of these matchups individually, but just let's go very quickly, through the teams, and then we'll talk about the matchup specifically. But you've already touched on some of the specifics, as it pertains to Vandy. But since they're the defending national champ, I don't necessarily like that term defending because that championship's obviously not going anywhere. But they're trying to win a second straight national championship. So just talk about your thoughts on Tim Corbin's club besides what you already said.
Yeah, well, I mean, their leader, Tim Corbin, can't get anything better than that in college baseball right now. He's the face of college baseball coaching side, and I know there's the whole debate of, does Vanderbilt have, more advantages because they're able to offer need-based scholarships, so they don't actually abide by the 11.7 scholarship rule. There's all of that, but when it comes down to like playing on the field, Vanderbilt has shown over the last 6 or 7 years that they know how to play in Omaha. And, coming back with a lot of experience from that 2019 team, especially with Kumar Rocker, who was a freshman at the time. Now he's 2 years older. They, I would say their biggest strength, of course, let's put Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker out of the picture. The biggest strength is that their lineup is really, really good. Biggest weakness, by far, the back end of their bullpen. And, it is tough to score runs in that ballpark. Wind usually blows in. It's a bigger field, so the home runs might not carry out. So I don't know if Vanderbilt's going to be able to slug with some of the teams against better pitching. I'm trying to talk myself out of Vanderbilt because I just made some bets at the casino about college World Series. But when it comes down to it, like, those guys know how to play in Omaha. They're really, really talented. They get some of the best talent every year. I just saw something on Twitter that said that they had the #1 recruiting class 6 of the last 7 years, and North Carolina was the best recruiting class in 2016. So they've had it ever since then. And, their fans travel well, but if they are going to get into some trouble, it'll be 6th, 7th, 8th inning. Maybe Kumar Rocker only goes 5 tomorrow against Arizona, and that's a really good offense that Arizona has, and they're going to be able to tee off on some of the Vanderbilt relief pitchers.
You talk about the Vanderbilt bullpen. When we saw those guys going in, we'd heard about the 3 M's, Maldonado, Murphy, and help me out with the third one. But, Maldonado, I think he had struggled at the end of the regular season, but in the postseason, especially last weekend, he pitched very well. And then same with Murphy coming in and closing things out in the ninth.
Yeah, they look good against East Carolina, but boy, some of the strike calls there were a little iffy. Yeah. We could probably talk for hours about the umpiring. I made it pretty clear on the 11.7 Twitter that I thought the umpiring was a little unfair during that series. Yeah. But, the bullpen guys
Thank you for
great.
saying that.
Yeah, no, of course. It was non-biased here. I watched every pitch of every game or both games, and it just felt like the umpiring was way off. Not even close. But
that was.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add just quickly to that. Like we said, that with those 2 guys, it's not like they needed help. When you have Rocker, who's awesome, and when you have Jack Leiter, who's awesome, and as a baseball fan like Bubba and I are, obviously you like those guys, but you don't want them pitching against your guys only because you like them so much and they're such great pitchers. But the fact that those guys are going to go top 5, and between those 2 guys, picks, and so they don't need help with the strike zone that's just a little bit outside.
Yeah, both sides of the plate, up and down. It just, the hitters knew, like for East Carolina, the hitters knew they had a tough task, of course. Like, you had to, battle these guys and get them out of the game as fast as possible. And when you're taking 2-2 sliders off the plate by 6 inches, it's like, what? Yeah. How are they supposed to compete against that? Or fastballs that are 6 inches off the plate. And then you have Gavin Williams getting squeezed a little bit. I mean, it was a tough scene for umpires, but I mean, it is the game. But I really think that if it would have won a game 3, if East Carolina would have won one of those two, I think they had a really good chance to knock off Vandy. I think Vanderbilt knew it too. I think Vanderbilt knew they had to win in 2.
I
No
agree.
question.
And yeah, as far as the strike zone's concerned, that's one of those things. If you bring it up, it's sour grapes. But I like the fact that you brought it up. Ben McDonald, who's an LSU SEC guy, brought it up, and several folks who may have even been pulling for Vanderbilt brought it up. They saw what took place, and Vanderbilt was the better club, like Cliff Godwin said. But anybody that didn't think there was an issue with the strike zone wasn't watching the game.
Exactly. No, 100%.
But
The only person I haven't heard say anything about it is the Whistler. But other than that, I mean,
I'm looking forward to meeting the Whistler tomorrow. I am.
Well,
I will find him.
there is. I actually had about a 25-minute phone conversation with Preacher Franklin, who is, I think, the less annoying of the two Whistlers.
Yeah, he's the second one. Yeah.
That's in his words. He said, "You listen to the other one and listen to me. You tell me which one's annoying and which one may be a little annoying, but not so much."
Yeah.
And he had some funny stories to share about his trips to Omaha, and one of the ushers asking him, I think it was in 2014 when Vandy won it all for the first time. They, told him, said, "Hey, you're going to have to cut that out, or the police are going to drag you out of here." And he said, "Send them on down." He said, "I'll sue their ass."
Yeah, I actually remember that picture on social media. Him standing next to a couple cops at TD Ameritrade. I guess it was 2014. It might have been 2017 or 16. But yeah, no, I remember they tried to get the cops on him, and he was just like, "I'm not doing anything wrong."
But he said after that it was so strange. He said he didn't change anything about the way he was whistling or when he was doing it. And then they came down later on, didn't have a problem. They brought him a drink or some popcorn and stuff like that, and took care of him. And he said it was so strange because he didn't change a thing he was doing, but it was like the fans, just because they saw the usher go down there, even though he didn't change his behavior, didn't have a problem with it because they thought it had been handled. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so annoying to listen to on TV. It's just, you just want to mute that part of the broadcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were watching the Greenville Regional, and we got done watching the game, and we're walking out of the stadium, and I got met Bub up in my vehicle. Then I took him to his vehicle, and we were watching the end of that Vandy series with Georgia Tech. And Bubba was starting to do that. I'm like, wait a minute, are you a Vandy fan now? But it was like, not only is it annoying, but it's very catchy. Like, it's like,
yeah, it is.
It's kind of like a song, a brand new song, a song you hadn't heard in a while, like an earworm. You just get, all of a sudden people are whistling, And I was like, Bubba, are you like are you like a Vandy fan now? He's like, no, I just like, it just started to be like a habit for him.
No, I'm just trying to get on your nerves, Dave. But
okay, all right.
But getting back to the baseball, let's talk about that first matchup tomorrow. 2:00 Eastern time on the Wolfpack. NC State has one of the longest tenured head coaches in the country, and I think the longest tenured. He's tied with within the state of North Carolina, that is, with Elon's Mike Kennedy. But Elliott Avent, 25th season with the Wolfpack, got that program to Omaha for the second time. I think it was 2013 when they went previously. But Dave, we talked about it on the show last weekend in our super regional preview. We really thought that they had a chance to go into Fayetteville and do what they did. And, they lost 21-2 and then bounced back and was one of that 25% to advance to Omaha after losing the first game of the super regional. So what were your thoughts on the Wolfpack, Ben?
Yeah. So, and whenever I was doing our preview show for 11.7, I talked about how I thought North Carolina was a good matchup against Arkansas, just because North Carolina has the star power and they have just enough to compete with anybody else in the SEC. And I was like, I like North Carolina or NC State to actually win the series. So I went down official pick NC State. I think it was like plus 650 for the odds to win the series. And after losing 21-2, I was definitely regretting that decision. And sure enough, they bounced back, came out to a big lead in game 2, and they held on. It was close at the end. And then game 3, I saw Kevin Kopp starting. I was like, okay, Arkansas is going to win this game. Gave up the early 2-run homer, and then Arkansas tied it up in the bottom of the 8th. Sent back out Kevin Kopps. I was like, ooh, I don't know if this is going to pay off. Sure enough, gave up the home run. But no, that NC State club is really good. They started out really, really bad in ACC play. I think 1-8, and turned it around. And it's all about just playing good baseball at the right time. And we see it every year. A team gets hot at the end of the year, and just carries that momentum through. And I mean, NC State was one of those teams that they were thinking about putting in as one of the 16 number 1 seeds. Of course, they weren't going to be able to host, but maybe send them to South Carolina instead of Old Dominion, or send them to Ruston as the 1 seed instead of Louisiana Tech. And they were, sure enough, the 2 seed there, took care of business in that Ruston regional. And I mean, they're playing really, really good baseball. They're a big physical team. And I think the 11.7 Twitter account tweeted something during the run in Ruston, just like, these guys are psychos. Like, they just have a bunch of players that play with way too much energy, and they have a lot of confidence. And I could see them making a run deep into this Omaha tournament. I don't know about winning it all. Still not 100% sold on them yet, but shoot, I've been wrong a lot in my life. So,
Hey, with Kevin Kopps in that situation, obviously he meant so much to that ball club. You know, what, like 34, 35 appearances, something insane over the course of the season. That was his first start, as you mentioned. But just talk about, as a former player yourself at Mercer, what would have been your perspective on that? You know, if you were one of those pitchers, and I heard a very well-respected member of the local media in Greenville, who was a former baseball player in the minor leagues, just saying, I don't know, you know, when he hadn't started all season, and then, you know, you send him back out there late, and like you said, after Arkansas had taken that lead. What's your perspective on that? If you're one of those 13 other relief pitchers, or however many Arkansas had at its disposal at that point?
yeah. And so Dave Van Horn, the coach at Arkansas, he actually broke it down in the middle of the game, like in his like mid-game interview with the announcers in the booth. And he said, you know, he's our best bullet, and we don't want to go the whole game without using our best bullet. So we might as well start him. I know Arkansas had the idea of, okay, we're going to start him. He'll go 5-6 innings. We're going to hopefully have a lead by then, a big enough lead. And then we're going to throw whoever we need to finish the game out. And gave up the 2 runs, I think in the 3rd inning or maybe 4th inning on that 2-run homer. And he settled down. I mean, he went 8-pitch inning, 11-pitch inning, like 12-pitch inning, like back to back to back. And when he finished the 8th inning, you kind of feel the momentum swing towards Arkansas. And of course, they hit the home run in the bottom 8th, tie it up. And at that point, I think of course, I'm not a Division I coach, but at that point, you have all the momentum. Kevin Kopps just left his guts out on the field, went 8 innings, 111 pitches, 110 pitches, something like that. That's whenever you bring in a new arm and kind of keep that momentum there, just because he was out of gas. He hadn't started all year. He hadn't started since 2019, I think. And he's thrown a lot. He threw 2 innings the game before as well. So, but they left the same bullet out there, and sure enough, he gave up a 2-strike home run, which he's only given up a couple home runs all year. So you couldn't really count on that happening. But yeah, when it came down to it, NC State made the big plays at the right time and took the series, and well-deserving make a trip to Omaha.
Yeah,
And
like
quickly,
you're saying, in the regional, Kopps had thrown, what, about 185 pitches in
Yeah.
three ball games, and then he threw
Yeah.
20 to 25 in game 2 of the super regional, and then what was that pitch, 114 or 115 that got hit out of the yard?
Yeah, it turned out to be his last pitch of his Arkansas career too, which it sucks because, I mean, he's going to win the Golden Spikes Award this year. No questions about it. He was the best player in college baseball. The numbers he was putting up were ridiculous, and he was on the best team in the country. So, I mean, hell of a season, 6-year guy, was never a draft prospect really. He's worked himself into probably a top 10 round, maybe even top 5 round potential now, but he doesn't have overpowering stuff. Like just like that 92-mile-an-hour cutter, and he has that gyro ball that comes in about 83, 84. And that really two-pitch mix, if you can locate it, you're going to have a lot of success in the college level. And he just kept with his stuff, didn't try to be anything he wasn't, didn't try to throw 95, 96. And, he made some hitters look dumb all year.
Obviously, NC State taking on Stanford. Stanford, you alluded to it earlier. We didn't discuss it, though. Going into Lubbock's such a tough place to play. A lot of folks, anticipated the Red Raiders winning that super regional, excuse me. But I know Aaron Fitt had really been on the Stanford bandwagon, and he really liked what the Cardinal had done. He thought they were maybe even deserving of a national seed, and they've proven that. It didn't so much surprise me that they went into Lubbock and won the super regional, but it did surprise me the way they just went in there and throttled Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I was a Stanford doubter from week 1 till last week. I didn't think that they played a hard schedule. I know they went the whole season without losing a series, but I wasn't sold on them. I thought they only used like 5 or 6 pitchers for a majority of their innings, and the offense was kind of up and down. But it wasn't. I was shocked that they went into Lubbock and swept the regional, of course, but it was how they did it. Outscored them 24-3. Texas Tech was never in any of the games. You see a lot of teams kind of fold under the pressure of playing in Lubbock because it's hot and the fans are rowdy, and it's just like in the middle of a desert. And those guys came in, mustaches and all. Everybody on the team has a mustache now, and they barreled everything up. It was like they knew it was coming. It was incredible. So I actually, in the first bet I placed for tomorrow's game, is I took Stanford to beat NC State. I think they come into Omaha playing the best baseball they've played all year. And they just have a lot of confidence and swagger about themselves. And I like Brennan Beck, who's going to be starting on the mound for Stanford tomorrow. Came in, was he Saturday or Friday, whatever game 1 was for the Super Regional. And it was 106 degrees in Lubbock, and he said, boys, we're wearing black. So they wore black, and it was just a mindset for them. So it's going to be hot in Omaha tomorrow. Wouldn't surprise me if Stanford rolls out with some black jerseys.
You're starting to say, Ben, you're starting to sound like the Raiders, because I was going to say Oakland Raiders, but the Raiders, having those dark uniforms, they're definitely very intimidating, right?
For sure. And really in college baseball, when it comes down to it, especially in the postseason, a lot of these teams are matched up talent-wise pretty similar. Of course, you have a few outliers and things, but Stanford and Texas Tech, similar, like talent-wise, were very similar. But when you have guys coming in with a plan and a little chip on their shoulder like Stanford did, and just something a little extra to play for, wearing the black jerseys in the heat, everybody having mustaches, it just sometimes in college, like it's the little things that really pushes the team like forward and get a lot of momentum rolling. So that was a big surprise for me. I was all over Texas Tech last weekend, and I was talking them up, saying that they're going to make another trip to Omaha. We've seen them there plenty of times, and they were never even in any of those games. Both games, they were getting blown out first 3 innings.
No doubt, and that will be an interesting matchup. That's again what, Bubba? Is that noon tomorrow or today, rather?
I'm sorry, say that again, Dave.
It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern,
2 p.m.
1 p.m. Central.
2 p.m. Okay, there we have at the bottom of the screen for those watching live, or certainly when we have it archived. It's going to be a huge matchup, and the 2 o'clock matchup. That's the 2 o'clock matchup. The 7 o'clock matchup. The Vandy Arizona series. That's going to be really interesting. We were talking about Vandy and Arizona, but that'll be a lot of fun. Talk about for fans like myself, we're trying to catch up on obviously we know the format of double elimination, but is it 2 games a day, guys? Is that the way it's going to roll?
Yep, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, and then I think it's 1 game Monday, 1 game Tuesday. And I don't think we'll get 2 games again until maybe Wednesday or Thursday. No, it's 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, and then I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule. I'm doing 1 day at a time, to be honest. But I know it's 2 games Monday, 2 games Tuesday. Now that I think about it, because you have a winners bracket and losers bracket. But yeah, it's 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern. Both are all 4 days coming up.
And being here, based out of North Carolina, going back very quickly to Stanford, with what David Esker has done there with the Cardinal, he did such a tremendous job at Cal, and then he comes right basically across town, not far away to the the big rival, and now is doing what he's doing. What, year 4, I think, with Stanford, something like that, taking over for a legend like Mark Marquis.
Yeah, no, and he's got the program in the right read, because Stanford's a hard school to recruit to. Of course, they have the baseball tradition. They were going to Omaha a ton back in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. But it's tough because you have the academic requirements, and then of course it's expensive to go to school there, and the 11.7 scholarships don't cover a lot of that. So it's a tough school to recruit for. A lot of the top talent out of California end up getting drafted out of high school and signing. So there's a lot of obstacles that they have to overcome. But the team that he has this year, they're a fun group to watch. Obviously, I didn't watch them as much as I've watched a lot of the East Coast teams, just because Pac-12, the streaming services are terrible, but that's a different story. But yeah, I've watched them throughout the regional, throughout the super regional, and they're playing really, really good baseball.
Talk about that Arizona. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I was just going to make a quick point. In 2019, when East Carolina traveled out to UCLA, Bubba, do you remember that? Where, I mean, UCLA is one of the biggest schools in the country, and you couldn't even watch those games streaming on their local or their website or anything like that.
Yeah,
it
was pretty funny,
terrible.
man. I know you remember the name Bryant Packard.
Oh yeah, I know Bryant Packard.
Well, Pac's dad, John, due to UCLA, like Dave said, just totally unable to understand why they didn't have a live stream, Facebook, YouTube, or something. Even if it's just one camera, it's inexcusable for a Pac-12 school, especially one like
number one in the country.
Yeah,
so good, ranked number 1 in the country, I believe, at that time. But
yeah.
But anyway, John Packard came to the rescue, and I think he had something like 650 or 700 people viewing his Facebook live stream.
That's amazing. And yeah, I mean, it's a joke about UCLA and a lot of the Pac-12 schools. If they do have a streaming service, it's free, but it's one camera right behind home plate about 85 feet away. And it's just a joke. I mean, they could do so much better, and they need to do so much better.
No question about it. Being our school, East Carolina, I'm very proud of with our streaming, and they do an excellent job even before the ESPN Plus days on ecpirates.com. They've been doing that for a long time. Those guys are, I mean, professional is an understatement, right, Bubba? The great job that they do.
Yeah, the last few years it's really improved. Prior to that, we had one camera as well, but on the last few seasons it's gotten much better. But going back, Ben, you were talking about that Arizona offense and how potent they are. Last weekend in their victories over Ole Miss, they scored 9 runs and 16 runs. So just dive a little bit deeper if you can into that matchup with Kumar Rocker.
Yeah, and so Arizona's offense, I believe, is averaging something like 8.5 runs a game. I mean, you look through their schedule, and it's double digits, and it's crazy because they're led by their 2 best hitters are both freshmen. And Jacob Berry, the guy, he hits 2 in the order. Freshman, I think he has 18 home runs now and just real power. But the thing about the Arizona offense that a lot of people are overlooking is like they don't strike out a ton. They put the ball in play, and they really use like the big part of the field, like left center, right center, dead center. And I think they're going to play really well at TD Ameritrade because of the big gaps there. They put the ball in play. And now Kumar Rocker's got a lot on his plate here because Arizona's going to foul off a lot of pitches. They're going to take some close strikes. And if they can get into that Vanderbilt bullpen, close game, 6th, 7th inning, the moment they put somebody else out there, Arizona's going to tee off on them. I really do think that. So that was my second bet. Was I actually took Arizona as an underdog today for tomorrow's game. I think that they're going to play well at that field. I think they're going to hang around just long enough, and then late in the game they're going to come out and win the game with a clutch hit, maybe a double in the gap, clear the bases. But yeah, just look for Kumar Rocker. His pitch count's going to be high, I think, all day. Just because Arizona doesn't give up any, cheap outs. They don't swing on the first pitch like a lot of these teams do, and they'll foul balls off with 2 strikes, work the count deep till they can get a hit, till they can get a pitch they can drive. And I really think Arizona is going to shock a lot of people, and I think the Pac-12 is going to shock a lot of people. Going back to Stanford, we saw it kind of in the NCAA basketball tournament this year. not a lot of people knew what to expect from the Pac-12 because they did mostly in-conference stuff and not a lot of exposure on TV or anything. And then they come out in the NCAA basketball tournament and they win. I think they won like 11 of their first 12 games in the NCAA basketball tournament with like three or four teams in the Sweet 16. And that's kind of what I'm expecting here now. Looking back at the postseason through regionals and super regionals, like the Pac-12 is really dang good. They're a very good conference, and a lot of people have been sleeping on them. So I'm excited to see what these Pac-12 teams match up against ACC and SEC teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And let's transition over to Sunday's games. So the first game on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, you have UVA making its first trip back to Omaha since winning it all in 2015. And that's a program, the Cavs have been so consistent under Brian O'Connor that any drop off at all was going to surprise people probably. And they hadn't been as consistent since then. This is the first time they've won a regional since 2015. And they had missed the tournament at least once, maybe a couple times in that stretch. But just talk about them. They were one of the teams that was really hot entering the tournament. They go down to Columbia. They take out Old Dominion in Game 7 of that regional, and then win the Columbia Super Regional against Dallas Baptist in 3 games. That was an excellent series between those two clubs.
Yeah, I think it's funny how Virginia's gotten to Omaha because they have one of the most dynamic starting pitchers in the country that not a lot of people have heard about, but Andrew Abbott, the lefty starter they have, it's like almost 2 strikeouts an inning. I mean, electric stuff. And they've actually lost both of his starts in the postseason, and they're 6-0 in games that he does not start. So they're 6-0 in elimination games, lost the first game of the regional against South Carolina, and where South Carolina made a nice comeback. And then they lost game 1 of the Super Regional against Dallas Baptist when he started. And then, they came back, won back-to-back days. So a team like Virginia definitely is an outlier. Now, if you go back to the first episode of the 11.7 podcast this year, I actually picked Virginia as a sleeper to win the whole thing. I thought that talent-wise on the roster, they were really good, experienced, a lot of guys that are very versatile. And, I said, this is a team that nobody's going to be talking about that could win it all. And when you look at the middle of March, people were like, dude, that's a terrible pick. Virginia's terrible this year. They're not good. They're not even going to make the postseason. And then they kind of pulled the whole NC State thing where they turned the whole season around by winning a few conference weekends in a row. And then they come into the tournament hot and get a pretty, I'm not going to say an easy draw, but you get Old Dominion, South Carolina in a regional, and then you get Dallas Baptist in a super regional. Not the hardest schedule. I mean, there's been a lot harder schedules out there. And
East Carolina Vandy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so Virginia kind of proved me wrong a lot because if anything, I would say they would win Andrew Abbott starts and lose the rest, but they've done the opposite of that. Now with Virginia, like who's going to be the ones to knock them out? They're 6-0 in elimination games. Someone's going to have to knock them out to get in the loser or get out of the losers bracket. So I don't know, but Tennessee's going to start a guy, Chad Dallas, tomorrow, who had 12 strikeouts against LSU in his Game 1 start in only 6 innings. And he apparently is supposed to be like the funniest guy in college baseball, like a huge personality, gives great interviews. But he's going to be ready. He's a big-time performer in like big-time events, like primetime games. He shows up well. And Tennessee just kind of feels like a team with destiny this year as far as getting on the scene, making their noise, and continuing the success. But if there's one disadvantage to Tennessee is they kind of live and die by the long ball and kind of capitalizing on people's mistakes. Well, there's not going to be a ton of mistakes defensively in this NCAA College World Series because a lot of these teams are in the top of the fielding percentage and they don't make a lot of errors, and it's hard to hit a ball over the fence. And those are their 2 advantages. So Tennessee might struggle in this College World Series, or they could be that team of destiny and win it all. But I think that Sunday's game, the 2 p.m. game, Virginia and Tennessee, is going to really show who like a contender is and who's a pretender. And of course, like Virginia might lose this game and then go on and win the losers bracket all the way through like they've done before. But I think it's going to be a really, really competitive game. A lot of strikeouts between both starting pitchers. I'm excited to see both of those guys go to work.
Yeah, to your point about Tennessee's bats, the Vols have hit 98 home runs and 133 doubles, and they're slugging just shy of 480.
Oh, I know, and their lineup is deadly. They got some real talented bats in that lineup, and it starts with like their leadoff guy. I just blanked on his name, but he's from Australia. What is his name? Oh, I'll think of it here in a second. But I mean, he's the table setter, and he's always on base. I think he has more. I think he has way more walks than strikeouts this year. Liam Spence. Yeah, I think that's the name that came to my head. Liam Spence. That's what I'm going with.
It's definitely Liam. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, but he's a stud.
I remember the Liam part.
Yeah, he's a stud. And then I mean, you go all the way down the order, and you got like Lupicius or whatever his name is hitting 7th, and he could be hitting cleanup in any other SEC lineup. So, and then the whole Tony Vitello effect. That guy just won Coach of the Year in NCAA. Young, energetic coach is building what I think is going to be the next, empire in the SEC as far as getting stadium renovations done, year in year out, competing for SEC titles. Tony Vitello is, in my opinion, probably top 5 coach in the country right now, and he's going to have his boys ready. And I'm excited to watch Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. That program prior to Vitello taking over. Obviously, I mean they had a good year here and there under Dave Serrano and different, maybe Todd Riley, not so much, but prior to that, from like 1990 to 2007 under Rod Delmonico, he had won nearly 700 ball games and got them to Omaha 3 times. So this is a program that, even though they haven't had a ton of success recently, has had success at times over the last few decades. And taking a look at the club with Vitello, during one of those, I guess, his late season series, whenever they had Arkansas come there to Knoxville, that was pretty entertaining, that little exchange between Vitello and Dave Van Horn.
No, that was fun. And they used to coach together too. Like Vitello used to be an assistant under Dave Van Horn, and they were not happy with each other. It was a pretty heated discussion, but I loved it. I thought that Vitello didn't like something that Arkansas did, and he stood up for his guys, and that's just the kind of coach he is. He stands up for his guys and not afraid to go to war. So what he's doing over there at Tennessee is great, though. I mean, Tennessee is really turning into like a baseball school now, and it's just like one by one we're seeing more and more baseball schools, which ultimately will help the game of college baseball continue to progress.
Is that what you're saying about East Carolina?
I mean, East Carolina, they've been you guys have been dominant for how long now? I mean, it's baseball school, right? I mean, of course, everybody's going to say football school, but when it really comes down to it, I think East Carolina is straight baseball school.
What do you think, Butler?
Yeah, obviously, like Ben said, a lot of folks, and just because it's the most visible, even though college baseball is getting more exposure than ever before, just the sheer numbers of it, most folks would say football. But if you look at the numbers, championships won, it would definitely point toward baseball out of the big 3 sports, hands down. It's not even close. But let's hope that Mike Houston and staff will, do some things to change that here in the upcoming years. Kind of shifting gears to that 7 p.m. game, Texas. David Pierce has done such an excellent job there. Just talk, what are your thoughts on the Longhorns? USF gave them everything they wanted, even though it just went 2 games. They went to Austin and competed.
Right, and it's no surprise to say that like Texas had a very cupcake schedule for the postseason. I mean, I went back when I first saw the bracket released. I was seeing Fairfield as a 3 seed and Arizona State as a 2 seed. I instantly thought, Arizona State deserves to be a 3 seed, not a 2 seed, and Fairfield deserves, if to be in the tournament, they should be a 4 seed. And so they ultimately had 2 4 seeds, in my opinion, and then a 3 seed in their regional. And then they get gifted South Florida, who was a 4 seed in their regional. And I'll tell you guys this, the Big 12 in this postseason, if you take out Texas's like cakewalk that they've been on, they've been getting beat up pretty good. Like Texas Tech struggled big time against Stanford in the Super Regional. Oklahoma State got smacked around in the Arizona Regional. And then you had who's the team I'm forgetting? TCU losing in their regional to Dallas Baptist and Oregon State. So I'm not sold on the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is kind of a fraud this year as far as where we thought they were. A lot of people were overhyping the Big 12 all year. And now with this matchup against Mississippi State, the first game of the college baseball regular season was Mississippi State, Texas, and Arlington for that, Arlington State Farm Showdown, whatever they called it. And Mississippi State came out and beat Ty Madden once. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and beat him again, just seeing him for a second time. Now, Ty Madden is going to be a first-round draft pick for Texas, big righty, throwing 97, 98, got up to 99 in the super regional. I mean, he's an electric arm, but the Mississippi State's one of those teams that's very comfortable in Omaha. They have a mission. They need to try to win a national championship to kind of solidify their I'm not going to say solidify their legacy in college baseball, but because they have one of the most storied programs in college baseball. But those guys are out to win a national championship. And if Mississippi State jumps out to a lead against Ty Madden, they have Landon Sims sitting in the back of the bullpen that's ready to go 4 innings, who's struck out over half the hitters he's faced this year. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Texas, of course. But then again, it wouldn't surprise me if Ty Madden went out there and slammed the door for 7 innings and kind of put this Mississippi State offense, who has struggled a lot sometimes, and their relief pitching has struggled a lot sometimes, and even starting pitching has struggled a lot this time, or a lot of times. It's the same team that lost 2 games in Hoover in the SEC tournament and got run ruled both games. They've had weaknesses, but my gut instinct just tells me the Big 12 kind of some frauds this year, and it's really up to Texas to kind of prove everybody wrong because everybody else is sitting at home.
Well, I guess you won't be invited to the Big 12 commissioners.
That's all right. I'll live.
Hey, now, Ben, you take a look at Mississippi State, and the Bulldogs have been to Omaha 12 times. One of those programs that's probably been to Omaha an awful lot and not won it. I mean, you also, Florida State comes to mind. I think they've been something like 22 or 23 times, if not more, and never won it all those years under Mike Martin. But why could Mississippi State, you mentioned Landon Sims, but why could this be the year for the Bulldogs?
I mean, if this is the year for the Bulldogs, you got to point to the 2 guys at the top of the order, Rowdy Jordan, Tanner Allen, 2 guys that have been postseason heroes since they stepped on campus. And this is going to be their 3rd time in Omaha and only their 4th year. And those guys have the experience. Mississippi State, they have the pieces to make a run. And, of course, I think that they had a very, very tough draw with Notre Dame in their super regional. And the home field advantage played a big part in why I think they won that series, because Notre Dame gave them everything that they needed and more. I thought Notre Dame deserved to be a national seed, and of course they weren't. And Mississippi State, they won game 1 because Notre Dame made 4 errors, and then they won game 3 or I guess they blew them out. But I don't know, this Mississippi State team is so hot and cold that if they're the hot Mississippi State team we saw in the middle part of the season, who I think got up to number 2 in the rankings for a while, I mean, of course they can win the national championship. I mean, we've seen teams a lot worse win national championships in college baseball by just being hot at the right time. But it's going to come down to starting pitching. McLeod, or what's his name? McLeod, sorry, I always mispronounce his name. The lefty is starting pitcher. He's been shaky sometimes. And then they got Will Bednar, who's starting game 1 for him tomorrow night, who kind of relies on swing and misses with his fastball, not great off-speed pitches. And Texas's lineup this year actually has a lot of power versus a lot of Texas teams we've seen in the past under Augie Garrido and stuff. So it's going to be that game, of course, is going to be everybody's number 1 game to watch, just because you have 2 very, very strong fan bases with storied traditions. And I don't know, it's going to come down to SEC versus Big 12. Is the Big 12 frauds? Is SEC really that good? I think the SEC kind of got exposed a little bit in regionals and super regionals because everybody thought they were just going to run through everything. But they only got 3 teams to Omaha, and a lot of people were suspecting 4 or 5 plus.
Another interesting nugget, very quickly, Dave, as our viewers see, scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, 5 of this year's 8 teams, have won the national championship. NC State, Mississippi State, and then also Tennessee. Those 3 have not. So they're looking to obviously dogpile in Omaha for the first time. But of those 5 who have won national championships, Virginia's the only one that hasn't won multiple national championships. So there's a lot of very storied and tradition-rich programs like Texas, Arizona, et cetera, in this year's field.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of these teams win it recently too. I mean, going back to Arizona winning it in 2012-ish?
Yeah, they won it in 2012 because that's
against South Carolina
was trying to three-peat.
Yeah, they won it. Then they lost to Coastal Carolina in Game 3 back in 2016. And of course, we've seen Vanderbilt win it. We've seen Virginia win it in 2015. I mean, a lot of these have been like a lot of recent success here in this College World Series. But I don't know. I mean, this could be the year that either Mississippi State, Tennessee, or NC State wins it and gets to join that party of national champions.
It'll be a lot of fun, no doubt about it, with the College World Series. But it's going to be even sweeter when East Carolina makes it. And we have a big show, and we'll have it from that sports bar that Othello said. We want to have you stop by. Maybe have some pirate beverages. We're going to have a lot of fun. I don't know if it's next year when it'll be, but it'll be interesting to see if we have a coach or if we have a new coach. Obviously, we're running out of time, but we'll have a few more minutes left with you. If we do lose Coach Godwin, who would you go after if you're John Gilbert, if you're East Carolina?
So you got to get somebody who – I think you go either after an SEC assistant or ACC assistant or even Big 12 assistant, something like that, someone that is looking to get their first head coaching job, that's young and passionate, and somebody that you can have around for 8+ years. Or you go after a guy that maybe has been to Omaha a lot, someone that is possibly retired or on the outside of retiring. Like Pat Casey comes to mind from Oregon State, who's kind of hinting at maybe getting back into coaching baseball again. You go after those guys hard, they might bite, and you get them for 2 or 3, 4 years until the next big name comes along. But I don't know, man. There's just so many. Or I mean, you could also go a different approach and go after like a mid-major program head coach who has had a lot of success. I mean, there's a lot of different routes to go with, but off the top of my head, I would probably just go with someone like a high-level assistant coach who knows how to run a successful program that just needs time to, get to a position, find his school, and stay there for a long time.
And obviously, we're just speaking in hypotheticals.
Right.
Of course, yes.
Because Cliff Godwin's still our coach, and hopefully that will remain going into the fall. But this is one of those things that just, sports talk guys, and this is something that, that you have to bat around. But one of the things that here in the local media, and then also, guys that I talk to throughout the region, they say Jeff Palumbo, associate head coach, and he's a guy that, has garnered some interest from CAA type programs and different ones, and chosen to stay as a member of Cliff Godwin's staff, has been there for the duration since 2014, in that summer of 2014. And, another guy who comes to mind, obviously you're going to hear names like Bryant Ward, who played for Coach LeClaire, and is top assistant out there at UCLA. So that's a very common name that you would hear. And then even names like Eric Bakich at Mission, who played for Coach LeClaire, and then Link Jarrett at Notre Dame, but especially Bakich because of his tie to the program. And, maybe obviously Michigan has very deep pockets, but, maybe he would be willing to accept the call home, and we can pay him enough where it's comparable to what he's making there at Michigan, where he would be interested. And somebody else that you haven't heard mention a ton, but I was talking to someone tonight, and I wholeheartely agree he would be on my list, is Chris Pollard at Duke. I mean, he may not be interested. He may want to stay at Duke, but he's done such a tremendous job at App State and Duke. It wouldn't hurt to reach out and gauge his interest.
For sure. I mean, those are all really, really good names, and I like the Link Jarrett thing. I know he's from North Carolina. Used to coach at UNC Greensboro. Now I don't know as far as like I'm sure he's got much bigger plans, and I know he's going to be in the mix for possibly the LSU job, or if
Right.
Ole Miss opens up, he might be a big name there. But going back home to North Carolina doesn't sound too bad for him. I know his kid's playing at NC State, and he's going to be up here in Omaha this weekend. But if you're him, Link Jarrett, how long are you going to stay at Notre Dame? Are you there to build a dynasty in the ACC? Are you there to use it for I don't know, like a leapfrog move somewhere else to establish something better? I don't know, but it's an
And I tell
interesting
you,
name.
Link Jarrett is someone, obviously, you have Mike Martin Jr. there early on in his tenure at Florida State, and they made a regional this year. But down the road, should that not work out, Link Jarrett was an All-American shortstop at Florida State.
Yeah.
And played in multiple College World Series, I believe, with the Seminoles. So that's someone to keep an eye on with them, much like, down the road. And, we're talking way down the road here because Scott Forbes in North Carolina, he led that program to a regional and is very well respected and, rightfully so with everything he's done as a member of Mike Fox's staff prior to taking over. But with what Robert Woodard did at Charlotte, that's something to think about down the road as well, with him being North Carolina's all-time winningest pitcher.
For sure.
No doubt. We'll have to see how that plays out. And we hope, obviously, Cliff Godwin stays, but if not, he's definitely left the program better than it was. And when I say better than it was, it's not like things have been – it's like each coach is really cool, Ben, before we let you go. It's like there's like a step. And I know that not to be a spoiler alert to Bubba, but the guys at Notre Dame, it's kind of like the way I look at East Carolina right now, guys, is that I'll say this, and it's kind of like with East Carolina, we were like a regional team, Ben. It was like we're a regional team. Nothing wrong with that. But then you have now I think we've made that next step where we're super regional team. And then it's just about getting to that next step.
Making it to Omaha. Yep.
Yeah. So appreciate you very much for the time. I know that you've given us way more than we expected, but you're the best. And how can people follow your work? I know up on our screen, but for those listening, as far as social media, how can they find your work and of course your podcast?
Yeah, and so I just always direct people to our Twitter page. It's just at 11POINT7, 11.7. And we just try to put out like good content out there for people. And then the podcast links are all there. But no, like going back to what you're saying, like, I mean, I love coming on this show. You guys do a really good job. What we're doing this at 1:33 a.m. Like, this is definitely worth it for me. But no, I appreciate what you guys do. Hopefully you guys make a trip up here to Omaha, because I think it's coming soon. It has to be, right? You just keep getting the bad draws in the super regionals, but it is like known East Carolina super regional team now, not just regional team. And you guys are in the right direction. Hopefully Coach Godwin stays, because I think he's just right there on the cusp of making big things happen, like going to Omaha, making deep Omaha runs. And, if Coastal Carolina can win a national championship, East Carolina can easily win one too. Those things happen. So, but I will be sweating tomorrow a lot in Omaha. It's going to be hot.
No doubt. Enjoy your time there, Ben, and we look forward. I know you said you may potentially be going back out there after having to return home. So we'd love to, maybe before the championship series or something, check back in with you.
Let's do it. I'm always down.
All right, man. Get some sleep, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. You guys have a good one.
All right, you too. Appreciate you, buddy. All right. That's Ben Upton. Appreciate him very much. And Bubba, do you have anything before we go?
No, considering it's 1:45 Eastern time.
Yeah, time to go.
I'd say it's probably a good time to get some rest.
No doubt. And my son Alexander has a practice here in a handful of hours, so got to get the kids up and practice baseball brunch. It won't be with Bubba, unfortunately, but I'll be out there at the field, and we'll have a great time. And appreciate everybody listening and watching. Bubba, thanks so much for all your hard work in getting Ben there in Omaha at the College World Series. And until next time, folks, you've been watching and listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Good night, everybody. Go Pirates.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Udon Cheek, assistant track and field coach at East Carolina University. You are plugged into the Sports Objective Podcast. If you are a fan, you are plugged into the right place. And if you're really a fan, you will share that link. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode. Boom!